Welcome to Lighten Up, the Art of Living Clutter-Free, a podcast for people who are ready to clear the physical, the mental, and the emotional clutter that's been weighing them down. I'm Melanie Cohen, your host, coach, and guide. Each week, we talk about the clutter you can see and the clutter you can't. The stuff in your home, the noise in your head, the expectations, habits, and unmade decisions that quietly drain your energy. This isn't about perfection or minimalism. It's about creating space for what actually matters in this season of your life. Let's lighten up together, starting now. Okay, so let's talk about something that gets joked about a lot: retail therapy. You've had a bad day, you're stressed, you're frustrated, you're overwhelmed, so you buy something. And for a moment, it works. You feel better. You feel lighter and distracted. And here's the truth that no one really talks about. Retail therapy is not therapy. It is a very temporary escape. So let's talk about what we're actually managing, okay? Because when we reach for shopping, we're usually not looking for stuff. Usually. We're trying to manage a feeling. And sometimes our feelings are loud. Stress is loud. Anger is loud. Frustration is loud. Anxiety is loud. And nervous energy, that is also loud. And sometimes they're quieter, but heavier, because sadness is heavy. Grief is heavy. Loneliness is heavy. And just the basic blues that you can't explain, they're heavy too. Shopping gives us a hit of relief, a sense of control, a little dopamine boost, but it doesn't resolve the feeling. It just delays it. So I want to talk about the pattern behind it, because this is where I need to be really clear. I'm not a licensed professional and I can't speak to addiction clinically, but I can speak to patterns that I am very familiar with. Retail therapy can start to mirror other compulsive behaviors that we use to avoid discomfort. Emotional eating was a big part of my past. Scrolling, overworking, drinking, spending, different behaviors like gambling and drugs. And I don't mean to make this that serious, and I also mean to make it that serious, all at the same time. All of those are different behaviors, but they have the same goal. Don't feel the thing. We squash it down with all of those behaviors. We get to ignore it. So if you're listening and thinking, this feels bigger than a habit, I'm going to include in the resources, in the show notes, so you can find support, the support that you deserve. And you don't have to figure that out alone. So I want to talk about my story briefly, because maybe it will help you. This is what I'm going to call from food to shopping, because I know this pattern. I know it well because I lived it. When I lost over 60 pounds, I had to completely change how I ate, because for decades, I used food to squash down uncomfortable thoughts and feelings. I fed the feelings instead of feeling the feelings. And when I started eating more intentionally, more consciously, and in healthier ways, the emotional eating lessened. It did not disappear. It never fully does, and that's okay. But what happened was that I became more aware of it. I could actually take the pause that's necessary. I could ask myself, what was actually going on? What was I trying to avoid? And here's what's happened. Because nothing is perfect. While I wasn't using food in the same way anymore, I started shopping more, a lot more. So I'm going to tell you, there was a justification loop here. I had really good reasons. I lost over 60 pounds. My size changed multiple times. Even my shoe size changed. This is true. And yes, I needed new clothes, from the bras and the underwear to the shirts and the sweaters and the dresses and the skirts and the pants and the shoes. But I didn't need as much as I bought. That's the part we don't always catch in the moment. The line between necessary and emotional spending can get blurry and it can get blurry really fast. Overspending also creates a different kind of clutter, and that's financial clutter. Overspending doesn't just affect your bank account, it creates that financial clutter. Credit card balances that linger, that little feeling in the pit of your stomach after you buy something, like, I knew I shouldn't have done that. Avoiding your bank account, stressing whenever the conversation about money comes up, that's mental clutter, and it's emotional weight. Overspending also creates physical clutter. And then there's what happens to all the stuff. Closets get crowded, drawers get packed, spaces feel heavier, and a lot of what we buy in those emotional moments, we don't actually need. We don't use it, we forget we even have it. And for many people that I have worked with, they stay in boxes unopened for months, even years at a time in some cases, the point where not only do I not remember what I bought, but I don't know which box it's in that stack in the garage or the front hall or wherever it may be. And so all of this eventually becomes clutter. So you may remember I did an episode about the Diderot effect, and this actually ties directly into something I talked about in that episode. So if you haven't listened to it, definitely go back and listen. But I didn't talk about it because I didn't realize it at the time that when I was buying all those clothes after losing weight, was that it wasn't just about replacing what didn't fit. It was about what each new item triggered next. One purchase made another feel necessary, and then another. A new outfit needed new shoes. The new shoes needed a new bag. And suddenly what I already owned didn't feel good enough anymore. Before I knew it, I wasn't just updating my wardrobe. I was building an entirely new one that I didn't necessarily need, especially at those times where I was replacing mid sizes. I went from a 20 to an 18. I didn't need to replace everything. And when I went from an 18 to a 16 and then a 14 and then a 12 and a 10 and so on, I didn't need to be replacing an entire wardrobe each time. This is the Diderot effect in real life. And retail therapy pours gasoline on that cycle. If you've already listened to that episode, you'll hear the connection here. And if you haven't, it's there whenever you're ready for it. So here's this other idea, but I donate it. I hear this all the time. I'll just donate it. And yeah, donation is better than throwing things away, but it's not the best solution. The best solution is not buying it in the first place. When we're using shopping to manage our emotions, even donated items still require resources to produce, transport, and process. And not everything that gets donated gets used. Some of it still ends up in a landfill. So the reality is, if all of that's happening, I don't need to spend my money on it. I don't need to be the one responsible for that. So let's talk about where I am right now. Because today, I still love shopping. I love thrifting and estate sales and yard sales and stoop sales, but I've learned something really important. If I can't prove to myself that I will use it often or wear it often, I have to leave it behind. No matter how good the deal is, no matter how perfect it feels in the moment, I also budget. Because it's cheaper is not the same as it's necessary. And it's sustainable is not the same as I should buy it. This is where the real work is. Pause before you purchase. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What am I trying to avoid or change? Will this actually solve that? Because sometimes the answer is yes. But a lot of the time, it won't. So if you're sitting there and thinking, okay, I've definitely done this, you are not alone. You are not broken. You do not need to be fixed. And you don't have to figure it out all by yourself. If you have items in your home that came from those moments, those emotional purchases, I can help you work through that without shame. Join me for the next Declutter with Me live session. Book a Lighten Up quick shift session. Lighten up doesn't mean calm down. It means lighten the load that you're carrying. You don't need a full and complete overhaul. You need a place to begin. Retail therapy isn't really about the stuff. It's about what we're trying not to feel. And when you start getting honest about that, that's where everything begins to shift. If this episode resonated with you, I am sure that you have friends or family that could benefit from it. Please share the episode with them too. Thank you for listening to Lighten Up, the Art of Living Clutter-Free. If this episode resonated, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use just a little bit of lightness. If you're ready for deeper support, you can work with me one-on-one or join my Lighten Up Clutter-Free Mindset Group program. You can find all the details at my website, thoughtfullycoaching.com. Until next time, progress over perfection. Messy action is better than no action at all. So let's lighten up.